Sil P's cruel prank triggered deep trauma from my past. I snapped, and my family cut her off. Now she's trying to paint herself as the victim and turn everyone against me. I'm 27, and I've been married to Erin, 27, for 3 years, though we've known each other for 6. Erin has an older sister, Sophie, 33, and it's because of her that everything recently spiraled out of control. 3 weeks ago, Sophie asked if I'd join her on a family holiday to Spain with her, my mother-in-law, and my husband's cousin, Nadia, 27, Nadia and I have always been closer than Sophie and her, even though they're first cousins. We were in the same grade and went to the same high school, so our bond is naturally stronger. At first, I wasn't keen on the idea of a family vacation. I didn't think it would be much fun with Sophie and my mother-in-law, but when Nadia spoke to me, saying she needed a break and wanted me to come along, I agreed. Sophie was paying for the flights and hotel stay, and she could afford it easily, given her wealth. She's married to a neurosurgeon, and while she owns an event management company, it essentially runs itself. She has a degree in literature but doesn't use it, claiming college was a waste of time, except for meeting her husband, of course. Erin has often said Sophie's been spoiled since childhood. She's always gotten her way, and as an adult, she still tries to manipulate people with sulking, pouting, or giving the silent treatment. Her husband and parents encourage this behavior, but Erin, Nadia, and I know how to call her out on it. Honestly, I've never been particularly fond of Sophie, but since she's never been outright mean to me, I've put up with her for the sake of the family. Anyway, I agreed to go on the trip, and 3 days ago, we were set to leave. I had to leave early for the airport since it's far from my house, and I ended up arriving about half an hour early. I was bored while waiting for the rest of the group, so I started scrolling through my phone. That morning, the vibration motor on my phone had stopped working, so I didn't get notified when messages arrived. It didn't seem like a big deal at the time, and I planned to fix it when I got back from the trip, but by chance, I was on my phone when I received a message from Sophie. She'd sent me a screenshot of a text she had received from an unfamiliar number. It included an image followed by a strange message. I opened the image, and my heart dropped. It was a photo taken outside my house, with a person holding a pair of scissors in their hand. The message that followed read, "Tell your darling brother's wife that I'm back." Sophie explained she'd received the text a few minutes earlier and was terrified because she thought Erin was in danger. That's when the panic hit me. I have a history of being stalked, and the terror from that time came rushing back. Years ago, when I was in college, a man began stalking me. He would take pictures of me from behind and send them to me throughout the day. He'd message me through fake social media accounts, asking to meet, but he never showed up. I never told anyone at first, terrified of what he might do. He even sent a picture from right outside my parents' house, holding scissors in a threatening way. Eventually, I confided in my roommate, who insisted we go to the police. Within days, they arrested him, a senior in the computer engineering department. Of all things, ironically, his expertise in cyber safety allowed him to find out a lot about me from my social media, which was public at the time. He'd also been stalking another girl who hadn't reported him. After he was caught, he was expelled from the college, though I heard he was later sent back home by his parents. That was the end of him tormenting me. But the fear never really left me, and when I saw that photo Sophie sent, it all came flooding back. I immediately called 911 and told Sophie to come to my house right away. I also called Erin, but he was still asleep, and I knew it might take some time to reach him. It was 8 a.m., and Erin tends to sleep in on weekends. After a few attempts, he finally answered on the third call, sounding groggy, but I told him to lock himself in the bedroom, arm himself with something heavy, and block the door. I didn't have time to explain, but once I mentioned the picture, he understood. I stayed on the phone with him for the 45-minute cab ride home, even while the police arrived and started inspecting the house. I didn't check my phone during this time, as I was too focused on getting home and making sure Erin was safe. By the time I arrived, the police hadn't found anyone suspicious in the area. I was in the middle of a full-blown panic attack and had to take a few minutes to calm down before I could breathe properly. The police informed me that the phone number used to send the message was linked to a person named Theo Wilson, but that wasn't my stalker's name. Still, a fake name was entirely possible. By this point, I had forgotten about Sophie and hadn't checked my phone for notifications, but the officers assured me they were tracking down the sender. Aaron and I went to the police station, and just as we arrived, Sophie was brought in, sobbing uncontrollably. While the police told us they had tracked the person down and were bringing them in for questioning, I think most of you can probably guess what happened. And yes, it's exactly what you're thinking. For reasons I can't fathom, Sophie decided to play a cruel prank on me the morning of our flight, just to mess with me a bit before the trip. A few days prior, she'd met a friend of mine from college through work, and as they were chatting, my stalker incident came up. My old college stalker had become pretty well known, not because I enjoyed the attention, but because people love a good scandal. Ever since that ordeal, I'd become something of a subject of curiosity on campus, and though I didn't ask for it, the story stuck. After hearing about what happened to me, Sophie thought it would be funny to prank me that morning before we left. She used a new phone number she'd gotten under a fake name specifically for this purpose. She sent herself an image she'd taken a few days earlier, right outside my house, holding a pair of scissors with her arm extended. The way she angled the shot made it look sinister at first glance, but when I looked closer, I realized the hand in the photo wasn't a man's, and I noticed she'd removed her nail polish for the shot. At first, I didn't notice those details because I was too panicked. The fear triggered all my trauma from that past experience, and I missed the signs that this was a prank. But no matter what, it wasn't funny. What I went through in college was terrifying, and Sophie should have known better than to stir up that kind of fear, especially since Aaron and his safety were now at risk. What Sophie thought would be a harmless joke ended up making all of us waste time at the police station, where she was eventually let off with a warning. In the end, it was just embarrassing for everyone involved. I was furious when I left the station. I let Sophie have it for over 15 minutes, screaming at her until she was crying again. But honestly, I didn't care. She had tried to turn something deeply traumatic into a joke, and her idiocy landed us in a situation none of us wanted. She could cry all she wanted, but I wasn't going to feel sorry for her, not after what she did. Aaron and I headed home, and on the way back, I told Nadia everything. She was so disgusted by what Sophie had done that she cancelled her trip too. Honestly, who would want to spend time with someone like Sophie after that? The whole day, I just tried to calm myself down. The stalker scare felt so real in the moment, and even after learning it was a joke, it still left me shaken. That period in my life had been the darkest, and it was hard to shake the anxiety it triggered. I didn't want to talk to anyone except Aaron and Nadia, so I turned my phone off and avoided notifications for the rest of the day. 2 days later, I found out that Sophie and my mother-in-law had flooded my inbox with messages, saying I overreacted to a silly prank and that I was cruel for convincing Nadia to cancel the trip. But I didn't tell Nadia not to go. She made that decision on her own after hearing about what Sophie had done. Still, it seemed like Sophie and her family wanted to blame me for her own actions. They were now portraying Sophie as the victim, and she was claiming that I owed her an apology for being so harsh. I spoke to Aaron about it, and he told me there was no reason for me to apologize. Neither he nor Nadia felt sorry for Sophie, and neither should I. What she did wasn't harmless. It wasn't just a prank, it was an attack on my mental well-being. I had spent an entire day paralyzed by anxiety, and I was still dealing with the emotional fallout. Sophie didn't even apologize, just kept crying as if that would make everything better. It was frustrating and hypocritical for her to expect sympathy when she didn't show any for me. When Sophie kept texting me, trying to make me feel guilty, I finally snapped. I couldn't take her manipulation any longer. In a moment of frustration, I texted her back, telling her that I was glad she'd chosen to pull such an insensitive and cruel prank because it exposed what an awful person she really was. I added that she had only herself to blame for the situation she was in. Then I told her I was glad she was being cut off by the family because, honestly, she deserved it. And because I knew how insecure she was about her weight, I took it one step further. I said that she was as much of a pig on the inside as she was on the outside. I didn't typically comment on people's bodies, but I knew this would hurt her, and at that moment, I wanted her to feel the pain she'd caused me. I don't know if I went too far, but I did feel a bit of satisfaction after sending that message. I'd kept my temper in check for so long, but she just kept pushing, and I finally couldn't hold back. After sending it, I tried to forget about it and watched a movie to distract myself. It was 3 hours before I checked my phone again. When I did, I saw a message from Sophie, where she said that she had considered me a good friend and had hoped I would forgive her tiny mistake without her begging. It was implied that she was sorry, though she didn't actually say it. Then she added that if I was just going to be rude to her, I shouldn't have responded at all. Instead of being nasty and making her feel like crap, I should have just ignored her. I had to laugh. She truly thought I owed her an apology after what she did. I was harsh, I'll admit that. The things I said to Sophie were cruel, and while I don't like her, she had a point. Maybe I shouldn't have gone that far. I was furious, not just at what she did but at the way she refused to take responsibility for it. Instead of acknowledging she messed up, she tried to pin the blame on me, gaslighting me into thinking I was at fault. That just made me even angrier. She kept pushing, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I guess I sunk to her level and went lower than I should have. The only part one feels truly bad about is insulting her weight. I know what it's like to be bullied for things beyond your control, and I didn't want to do that to her. But even with that, I still don't think she has the right to demand an apology from me after everything she did. If she'd just owned up to her mistake in the first place, we wouldn't be in this situation. Aaron thinks I don't owe her an apology because she was the one who hurt me first, and then kept trying to manipulate me with the whole "I'm the victim" act. He says she deserves to be called out. Nadia, however, thinks I went too far with the pig comment, so now I'm torn, and I honestly don't know what to do. That's why I'm here asking the Reddit community for unbiased judgment. I love Aaron, but he's not great with emotional situations like this, and I love Nadia, but she's a bit too emotional. I need a neutral perspective on this. So am I wrong for insulting Sophie's insecurities after she pranked me about my trauma? Update 1. Hey everyone, I've read through the comments on my original post, and I've been thinking about everything. I ended up apologizing to Sophie for the pig comment. I'm not sorry about the other stuff I said, but I couldn't live with myself knowing I had insulted her appearance when I've been on the receiving end of that kind of bullying before. I know how much it hurts, so I decided I needed to apologize for that specific remark. I sent the apology text just 5 minutes ago. She hasn't opened it yet, but I hope she does. If she doesn't, at least I know I tried to make things right, and after that, it's up to her whether she accepts it. As for my mother-in-law, I'm not speaking to her. She had no part in what happened, so I don't understand why she felt the need to defend Sophie when she knew Sophie was wrong. Her messages were full of excuses, saying things like, "Yeah, Sophie screwed up, or, I understand why you're mad, but if she gets why I'm upset, why should I apologize to Sophie? It doesn't make sense." Honestly, I think she just wants me to feel bad for Sophie, but I'm sure if the roles were reversed, she wouldn't have the same attitude. Aaron's not happy about me apologizing, but he says he respects that I'm trying to be the bigger person. Nadia, on the other hand, said she's proud of me for taking the high road, so I guess I'm okay with my decision. Update 2. Sophie just responded to my apology. It's been a few hours since I sent it, but she finally replied. She said it was fine, though she didn't expect anything better from me. She added that she was a little shocked, but understood now that we're not friends and won't ever be again. For what it's worth, at least she did say she was sorry for trying to mess with me and using something so traumatic against me. She claimed that if she had known the prank would have such bad consequences, she wouldn't have gone through with it. I don't think she should have done the prank at all. But hey, at least there was an apology, even if it was wrapped in passive-aggressive language. She tried to make it sound like an apology while also making it clear that she wasn't taking full responsibility for her actions. But something is better than nothing, I guess. Now, I don't feel guilty anymore, and I can move on without dwelling on the things I said. The whole situation is over, and that's the best part. No more Sophie in our live. Yes, and I'm okay with that. Update 3. It's been about a month since the last update, and last week, Nadia found out she's pregnant. We threw a big pregnancy announcement party, and of course, Sophie wasn't invited. Nobody has spoken to her or heard from her since she was cut off. She deactivated her social media for a while and has been laying low. Aaron checked in with his dad, and they assured us Sophie is doing okay, just taking a break from everything. The day of the party, though, Sophie sent Nadia a text. It was her usual passive-aggressive self, wishing Nadia luck with the pregnancy and all the best on the journey ahead. But of course, it had a twist. She said she wished she could be there, but she couldn't due to prior commitments, completely ignoring the fact that she wasn't invited. She claimed she would have loved to see me, Aaron, and the rest of the family, but she's now putting herself first and trying to avoid negative energies, meaning us. We had a good laugh reading it. She was clearly desperate to stay relevant and make herself the center of attention, but we didn't give her that satisfaction. We kept the text to ourselves and didn't share it with anyone at the party. It was just ridiculous. We all thought maybe her time off social media would lead her to reflect and change for the better. But nope, she's still Sophie. Good for her, I guess. At least her message gave us a good laugh.